And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. I have a wonderful guest joining us today, Debbie Monteggia, who wrote this beautiful book of poems, Tears of Change. Thank you so much for being here with us, Debbie. I so appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for the interview and to talk to you.
Now, first of all, I've always loved poetry, but when we hear about the story behind your poetry and how you got into writing some of these poems, it really spoke to me. So I think it's also going to speak to some of our viewers and listeners too. Would you share with us some of the struggles you've had and then how you ended up getting into writing poems?
Yes, I started writing poetry about 25 years ago, maybe a little more. I was actually suffering from a very acute case of anxiety. And I discovered my gift to write through my healing process with the anxiety. So part of my healing was to journal. And as I was journaling, I started extracting some of my words from journaling and started putting them in the poems based on certain emotions that I felt. And that's pretty much how my journey began. It was anxiety is kind of a form of depression. So it started out very sad, some of my poems. But as I worked through the sadness, it was very healing and unique because I found myself finding my joy. So that's how the poetry evolved over the past several years. And then I started writing after that about children and friendship and all different kinds of emotions and feelings.
I think a lot of us struggle with anxiety. It's also a buzzword. What is anxiety? How does it show itself with so many of us? Could you share that a little bit? Because I'm sure through all the work that you've gone through, that you learned a lot about it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I did. And anxiety is just a very intense feeling of anxiousness. And just, and it affected me, and I'm sure it affects other people the same way. It affected me mentally. I was very foggy. I couldn't really focus on anything. And then physically, it affected me by my heart racing. And I think that was the most scary part about the anxiety because of the heart palpitations. You almost feel like you're going to die. And then it moves from there into the physical aspect of feeling, clammy and just not feeling good. And I lost a lot of weight and it was just very debilitating. And I tried, and I think for people, there's a common thread in there for people. I think it's the anxiousness and maybe the heart palpitations. So it's kind of how I look at it as a fear upon a fear. You're almost afraid of the fear, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so you really have to... Yeah, go ahead.
I know that I think I struggle from that. And I know for me, it perpetuates, right? Like if something is making me anxious, I will just continue to spin in that direction. And how did you manage to pull yourself out of it? Because I think that's the hard part for so many folks. How do you snap out of it, if you will? Or what kind of techniques did you use? I know they talk about meditation and closing your eyes, but what worked for you in particular?
Well, at first I tried the easy route. I tried to medicate it. I went to my doctor and I said, I'm having all these intense feelings and the heart palpitations. And he gave me an anti-anxiety medicine. And oh my goodness, when I took that, it totally intensified it. It just went to a whole different level. I said, all right, I can't do that. Then I would try to have a beer, just to have a drink. Maybe that'll calm me down. Well, that did the same thing that the anti-anxiety medicine did. So I was basically forced. I really, Deborah, didn't know how to handle it at that time. And that's kind of the message I want to convey to people, because sometimes I think people that have it, they're ashamed of it and they don't want to talk about it or they don't know how to handle it. And it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. I actually went into therapy for it. And honestly, it was the best gift I could have ever given myself because I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know, my thought process was so foggy and cloudy. It's like, what's causing this? So, that's control. So if I figure out what was causing it, I could calm it down. But I couldn't do that. And that's where I said earlier, the fear upon the fear, I think. The anxiousness just keeps getting worse with it. So as I went in, and as stubborn as I was, I did not want to go into therapy because I was like, I'm strong. I don't need this therapy. Well, I was wrong. I got knocked down a few notches. And I went in and I did some talk therapy and I did a lot of journaling. And journaling is just another way of self-reflection and getting things out of your mind that's bothering you. And what I realized, my diagnosis was I suppressed all of my emotions. I wouldn't experience them all. And people say, well, what does that mean? It's like, I was, I don't like confrontation. I was just very quiet and very to myself. So I kept everything inward, which wasn't a good thing. And I remember my therapist saying, your cup's flowing over, Deb. You have to start processing some of these emotions. So I said, well, how do I do that? One of it was journaling and talk. And it was very effective.
But was this something from your childhood that was coming back to cause you anxiety? Like, what, in your case in particular, if you're comfortable sharing, what was causing you so much anxiety? Because I know that your husband was in fact helpful to you as you were feeling anxious, right?
Yes, he was. It's a combination of things that I think we all go through. I am one of 6 children. I'm the second from the eldest. I took on a tremendous responsibility with helping my siblings underneath me, raising them. There was alcoholism in the family. My mom drank a lot. There was some things when I was younger that happened, a little bit of sexual abuse. There's just a variety of things that contributed to that. And I think too, a lot of it was learned behavior at a very young age. And that I don't want to blame anybody for anything, but I think that kind of manifests itself from generations, generations to generations. You can only be responsible for what you know and your environment and things like that. So I think working through all of that, and even in school, bullying's here now, as prevalent as can be. It's more spoken about, but it was back then when I was younger too. A lot of things that work on your self-confidence. And so I think that really made me more or less of an introvert and not being able to express my emotions or feelings. And that's what manifested itself into that intense anxiety. I don't get it anymore, honestly. That's the beauty of it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do my book, is you can heal it if it's not chronic. Mine was acute. I was able to heal mine, and it was so liberating healing that and not feeling those feelings.
You know what, Debbie, I also think that it was very helpful that your husband was on board to give you support, because a lot of times family members can be very critical and they're like, go take a pill, go do this. But instead, your husband wanted to be a support for you, right? And I believe your children as well. Am I correct about that?
Oh, 100%. They were, my kids were pretty small at the time, but my husband was so on board. He was trying to fix it like most men do. How do I fix it? How can I help you? And it was just something I had to move through myself. And it was a little difficult for him too, because, I wasn't I didn't feel like I could take care of the kids. I just didn't feel like I was in my right mind. And I wasn't dangerous at all, because I did ask my therapist that after I was all said and done and kind of healed. And she says, well, I knew the minute you sat down, you weren't going to harm yourself. She said, you were afraid of death because you kept saying my heart was palpitating so much. I was in fear of a heart attack, physical manifestations of the body.
One great takeaway from speaking to you for all those people who are listening is, if you're feeling this way, go get good help. I think that's so important. And by getting the proper help and by starting to journal, right? You started writing poetry, and I don't believe that you've been a writer for most of your life. Certainly not, that wasn't your work. So let's talk a little bit about what your work has been, and then how you got into this writing beautiful poetry. And then we're going to read some of it too. So it's beautiful. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, through my anxiety, a couple gifts evolved, and that's kind of what I wanted to convey is when you face your fear, you'd be surprised when you get to the other side what can happen. And that's what happened with me. Like through my journaling, like you said, I extracted from that writing poetry. And no, I am not schooled in writing poetry. English was my best subject by all means, but I'm not formally schooled in, writing, or I never really took classes in it. And same with my interior design came out of working through my anxiety and healing. I discovered different aspects of myself because I had released all that, I say, cloudiness or cobwebs, other people's baggage. I'm kind of an empath. I'm very compassionate. So I take on other people's emotions a little bit. And
yep,
I had I hear you. Yeah, you're the same. And that's really important. You have to learn how to let that go. And I think that evolved from taking care of my siblings, my, four other siblings. It's just was part of the makeup, taking on other people's emotions, because when you do that, it just takes up space within you, and it doesn't give you any space for yourself, because that was one thing. Go ahead.
No, please.
That was one thing I had to go through. I know I went through 6 months of therapy, and my anxiety just kind of went away as quick as it arrived, and I had to go back in, because I asked my therapist, I go, what do I do now? She says, well, why don't you try being Debbie? And I go, oh, that's an interesting concept. I don't know how, because I was always giving, always helping, always just giving so much of myself. I didn't spend enough time trying to figure out what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. And that's when I said earlier, as I worked through this and I started focusing more inwardly on myself, I found my gifts. I found my gift to write, which I love. I found my gift to do interior design, which I really enjoy. So there's a lot of, I always say I'm a strong advocate of, look at your fears, because there's gifts in them. And I know people may not believe that, but there is. You really need to work through some of those fears and move to the other side.
I also sometimes think, as women, we do take a little more on, right? Whether it's the family, the children, the household, particularly people of our generation, right? Maybe it's a little different for young people who are in their 20s, because they're a little more accustomed to working side by side with the men in their lives, I think. But it does produce anxiety, and I think it adds up as time goes on. So kudos to you for getting good help. That's what I like. You need to get really good help, and for staying with it until you found who Debbie was. So when you figured out who Debbie was, who did you find? Who was at the door?
Well, it took me a little bit to trust myself. And I just kind of did some exploration, and I was extremely intuitive, if that makes any sense. After I kind of unloaded all that baggage, as the therapist would say, I was very focused, and I was very confident, which came out of that too. So I just really trusted my intuition and my gut. And I said, this is what we're going to do. I remember shortly after therapy, we were living in Texas, and I told my husband, he came home from work, and I said, it's time to move. And he says, what do you mean it's time to move? Where are we going? And I go, I don't know, but it's time. And we did move. We moved from Texas to Seattle, and Seattle is where my interior design started. So somewhere in there, I kind of had a intuitive thought of finding myself and finding my gifts. And wonderful, I believe we all can do that if one's struggling.
Yeah, and wonderful that your husband was wonderful he was able to move with you, right? That's wonderful.
Right. Well, it was funny because he said, where in the heck are we going to go? I don't know, but it'll work out. And he came home from work a couple of weeks later and said, okay, we can either go to Phoenix or Seattle. Where do you want to go? He was transferred. He had a transfer offer.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. You two are a great team, I have to say, and very fortunate, because I think it's very, very helpful to have someone in your life who can help you when they realize that you're struggling with something, as opposed to sort of being part of the problem. Too often you read about that and you hear about that, and they become part of the problem, in which case it's very difficult to sort of sort that through on your own. Let's talk a little bit about your poetry. Right. When did you first pick up the pen to write your first poems? Because Tears of Change is a collection of some of the most beautiful poems that I may have ever read. They're stunning. Again, we're about to start reading some of them. When did you start to pick up the pen to write these?
I started through my healing process with going through my anxiety, probably several months into it. And as I mentioned earlier, it started out, I had a lot of poems about water and crying because I was sad. And it started there. And then I started editing and just moving from that point. And they all just transpired from there. Came all out of my healing from anxiety.
You have no formal training in writing poetry, correct?
Nope.
I'm stunned. The gift that you have is amazing.
Thank you.
I'm going to start right now with you reading the poem, because I know this is a favorite of yours, actually. child's world. And I'm picking that
Yes.
one because you talked to us about how much responsibility you had as a child. So let's
Right.
start with that one. And then I'm going to have you read a personal favorite also of mine. So go ahead.
Okay, yes, child world is one of my favorites, and I always say it's spoken from a child's perspective, a child's view of the world. So it starts out, I'm only a child, please watch me grow. Teach me the things I need to know. My world is little I can't yet see. My journey in life, my destiny. Guide me now when I am small. It's these years that count the most of all. When you scold, it's hard to understand. Punish me with a guiding hand. Not one so firm it hurts my pride. Let me know you are on my side. When I am wrong, politely tell me so. Do not yell, I have no other place to go. Be kind to me, you must see. I'm not a perfect entity. The mistakes I make, my mess is unclean, are my stepping stones to learn and succeed. The tidiness can be altered a bit, but the adventure in me must never quit. Read with me, write with me, sing with me too. These are the things that I like to do. It's quality time, a necessity to pursue. It's important right now that I lean on you. Please give me all the love I need. It nourishes me. It puts me at ease. Hugs and kisses, they are the best. Their gentleness assures me that I am blessed. I'm only a child, please watch me grow. Soon I'll be an adult and then I'll know the love and togetherness that we shared will bring me lifelong happiness because I knew you cared. You know, and I always like to say after that, and I'll give you a little example of that, our external voice can become a child's inner voice. So we need to be so careful as parents and caregivers and adults, what we say to our kids. Even, you just have no idea what they're going to pick up. And an example of that is, I'll never forget when I was in 7th grade and I was in math class, my teacher called me stupid. Do you know I carry that with me to this day, probably? I know, 7th grade. And I was fearful of taking any more math classes after that. And I loved math, but it's kind of what I like to, say is we just need to be really careful how verbal words can be very damaging, and especially when you're a child. So,
well, when I first read that poem, especially about the gentle hands and the child was asking for understanding, why do so many of us, when we're raising children, I think we're so busy and there's too much on the schedule that we will lose our patience and we'll lose our cool and we'll snap. And that can stay with a kid. And then you snap one too many times and that leaves a lasting impression on a child. That was so beautiful to me because really what they're looking for is just a little kindness and a little understanding. Right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you said it so well. And I think we're all kind of guilty of that. Because it's just part of who we are as adults in our busy world of working and taking care of the house. And children are in their own little world and they're just so spontaneous and carefree, and they don't carry what we carry. So but they'll hear, and, they always say, be an example of who you want your children to be. And it's hard to do. I don't know anybody can do it perfect. I didn't. I'll admit it straight on. I remember losing my patience with my children too. And even when the playtime came, Mommy, come play with me. Oh, I can't now, honey. Yeah, I have to get this done. And that's just real important time for them. So I think that's where that came from.
Yeah, and you captured it.
Right.
You really did. You captured it so beautifully. You're right. The playtimes, they just want to play. And it's funny when you're a very young mom and your kids are little and they're sort of at your feet because they want to play. Put down whatever you're doing. Even if you can't put it down, just put it down, because you're not going to get that moment back. And then you look back on it 10 or 15 or 20 years later and you think, gosh, was it really that important that I had to do something? I should have put it down and sat on the floor with them and do whatever it is that they were doing. That would be the one piece of advice that I would give to parents that was given to me when I was younger. And now that my kids are not little anymore, I would impart that same advice on younger parents. That's really what they need, right?
Yeah. And that's why I say the mistakes I make, my mess is unclean, are my stepping stones to learn and succeed. It's like, forget the housework. Just what you said. spend some quality time. It goes by so fast. And I know
It
you know
does.
that. You're a mom.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, it just seems you're in it. But when it's over, like you said, and you reflect back, you go, oh my goodness, all those precious moments and times that I didn't have to go clean the kitchen. I didn't have to vacuum the floor. I didn't have to go do this. I should have just sat down and, read. That's where the reading comes in. Read with me, write with me, sing with me too. That's where all that comes into play.
Yeah. There's another poem that I think is beautiful about friendship. Would you read that one for us as well? That I thought was beautiful. I actually want to make copies of it and send it to my friends. I thought this was beautiful because so many of my friends have walked me through a very important times in my life, and I appreciate their friendship. Would you read that for us too?
Yes, and that was very well said, Deborah, because I say prior to my friendship poem in the book, I have a quote by Samuel Johnson, and it said, friendship is the single greatest unconditional gift in the world. And I think you just summed it up just by saying, I want to give this to all my friends. And this was written for a dear friend that moved out of state. And I just couldn't find a card that expressed my feelings. So I sat down and wrote this poem.
Oh, wow.
So it starts out, there are so many fond memories I always will treasure. A true friendship is one you simply can't measure. It comes from a place deep down inside, a place that harbors honesty, dignity, and pride. A place where we laughed, a place where we cried, a place where there is no room for lies, a place where we shared the good and the bad, a place to reflect on the happiness we had, a place to go back to when feeling a bit down, a place where there's peace when there's chaos around, a place to embrace when life challenges you a bit, a place to be secure and endure and not quit, a place to remember all the talks we shared, a place to hold dear because I knew someone cared, a place where there's feelings, emotions, and sincerity, a place where I hope we will never lose clarity, a place in my heart that is special, you see. This is the friendship you have given to me.
That's a beautiful poem. That really is beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm going to cut this one out and, copy it and send it to a few of my friends because I want to encourage them to pick up this book. It's a very therapeutic book. 18 poems, right, are in this, and each 18, one is deeply personal to you. How long does it take you to write a poem, if you will?
Yes, I have a mirror of faith, which is very what we were talking about earlier, discovering who I am, who is Debbie. When I went back to my therapist, how do I find out who I am? That's a mirror of faith. It talks about going deep inside. I do have one on fear, not foe, but friend. So it moves into vulnerability, definitely.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And they say, go find yourself. It's like, well, wait, what? That takes time to figure that out. And I think it's wonderful that you've done this. Go ahead.
Oh, Deborah, I'm losing you. I don't know what you said.
That's okay. Ooh. I said it's magnificent how each one of these poems comes out of a personal experience, actually, from what you've been through. Perhaps before I let you go, should we read, you tell me, Honor Your Tears. I know you love that one personally. Treasures of Your Heart. That's something I love. But is there a final poem you'd love to read to us to impart on our viewers and our listeners that you think would resonate with them? Oops, Debbie, I have lost now your audio. I've lost your audio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're beautiful. Go ahead.
Okay. Or the mirror of faith, because that's kind of self-reflective for all of us to kind of move inside ourselves and honor who we are as individuals and humans. So the mirror of faith, look into your eyes, the window to your soul. Peer deep inside, an old friend will unfold. This friend has been waiting a long time to be found. This is your best companion. It has always been around. Look into your eyes, the window to your soul. Feel those hidden feelings that have never been told. Whether it be joy, whether it be pain, let the feeling surface. The truth always will sustain. Look into your eyes, the window to your soul. The abundance of those tears will surely turn to gold. If those tears are truly all from hurt and pain, just remember through the struggle, there is much to gain. Look into your eyes, the window to your soul. See the transfer of life, a cleansing of the old. This friend has been waiting for you to finally see the treasures of your heart. They are your destiny. Look into your eyes, the window to your soul. Trust in yourself to reach your ultimate goal. It's God's way of showing your journey's destiny. The window now opens, your soul is set free. So that one's very self-reflective.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's deep. That's a deep one. But I love it.
Really,
it's true.
Yeah, I was also visualizing through your reading the poem. It's a beautiful poem. I really got lost in it. It's just such a beautiful poem. What would you advise for people? Because what a wonderful way to sort of collect your thoughts and share your thoughts, even if you're just sharing them with yourself, which is impactful. For someone who wants to start writing poetry, what would you advise them?
Just start jotting down ideas. Just start writing. I was on the patio the other day and I'm visiting a guest, or I'm not in my home state right now, but I was just looking at this path and I just started writing. So just start writing, whatever comes to your mind. And so many people, well, I can't write. You'd be surprised. People say they can't write because they want it perfect the first time. Do you know how many times these poems have been edited? Oh my gosh, I have gone through and changed them and edited them. My husband, we would spend time at the coffee shop. He helped me edit. We would get into he changed one word and I said, you're taking away the meaning. No, but this sounds better. So we banter back and forth what works. But I guess back to the beginning is just start writing down, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and just keep the thought, keep going. And then you'll be amazed at how you can look back and you'll go, wow, that sounds pretty good. And of course, it needs some more structure, different words, because I have a tendency to use the same word 5 times. But that's when the thesaurus comes in, and I love to change things around there. So it's not that difficult.
Wow,
it's
beautiful.
A fun little practice.
Absolutely stunning and very relaxing. I hope all of our viewers and all of our listeners felt relaxed through our interview, because I feel much more relaxed through our interview, because I do. The poetry really brings you to a certain place, and you're listening, because, there's a certain cadence, right, to reading poetry and hearing poetry, and you have to really think about it. So this is just beautiful. What's next for you, Debbie, if you will?
Well, I'm enjoying the journey now. I've been doing a lot of interviews. There could be a second edition. Like I said, I just kind of rough drafted a poem the other day again. So that is down the road. And I also have a website where I sell poetry overlays. Friendship actually is one of the poems on there that you can get.
Oh, wow.
And
really? Okay.
Yeah. A poetry overlay is real quick, and you can go on my website and find out. You would send me a picture of one of your friends, maybe you and your friend. And then I take that picture and I take friendship and I have it overlaid over the top of that picture. So the picture is more of a silhouette. You and your friend are more of a silhouette. And then the poem is in the forefront. And it's really a beautiful, lovely. Yeah, it's really a beautiful momentum and a gift that you can share with your friends. And I have 4 poems on there you can do that with. So you can look at my website. It's tearsofchangepoetry.com.
Can you do that with the Child's World?
Yep, that's one of them on there.
I would love to do that for my sons. I have 3 children. I think that would be a very impactful gift for them. I'm glad you told us about that. Everybody, please.
Yes.
What a wonderful. So let's go on your website and figure that out. And any other parting words you want to tell our audience before I let you go?
Well, I would say, listen to your heart. If you're struggling with anything, you need to go inward, because we all have what it takes. This is my biggest thing. And I do this too. Everything we need in this life is within us, but we're always looking without. We're always looking outside of us for gratification, for whatever it is. And it's within. And it took me the better part of half my life to figure that out. I had to go through the anxiety to kind of figure that out. And I just like to convey that we all have it. And some people go, oh, no, we don't. I can't find it. Yes, you can. Just spend some quiet time with yourself and maybe just jotting things on paper. Don't make it hard. It doesn't have to be hard. And I always say where people can start, look at what you're a little fearful of, and kind of say, what is it I want to do? And don't put that negative voice in there, well, I can't do it because I don't have the money, or I can't do it until my kids are older, or I can't do it. You know, I have a quote at the end of my book by Arthur Ashe. Start where you are, do what you can, right? You know it.
Yes, I have it right here. I wrote it down.
Yep.
And I thought, I only have a few minutes, but Arthur Ashe, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Why did you put that in there? Were you a big fan of his?
No, he's a tennis player. No. I saw that quote, and Debbie, that quote resonated with me so much, because just what I said, don't wait till you lose 20 pounds. Don't wait till your kids graduate. Don't wait till you have enough money. Just what I said, it's in here. I did. I mean, I kind of waited a little long. I kind of waited till I semi-retired to do my book, but I just think we all have it within us. And that's where that poem, and that's why I ended that's the very last quote in my book, is because I really wanted that one to resonate with people, because they read my book from front to back. That's my story. That's my journey. And we all have a journey, and we all have a story. So start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can, because you have it within you.
Yeah. Beautiful way to end that book. And I did. I made sure to write that one down. I thought, gosh, that's interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up. Gosh, Debbie, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to have you back, but I'd really love for people to go on your website and check you out. And also, please, to purchase Tears of Change. It is
oh, you have it up there. Good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book, and it's a very peaceful, meaningful book. Also, it's nice and thin. I like when a book is thin. I can stick it in my bag. I love to go to the beach. I live close to the water, and I could take it with me and just read 1 or 2 poems. And that could really transform me to another place. So particularly if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with anxiety, it could be helpful to you too. So Debbie Monteggia, thank you so much for being here and joining us on our show at Deborah Kobylt Live. And you can find this interview on YouTube, on IGTV and Facebook, and then on all audio podcast platforms as well. So please look us up. And of course, Debbie Monteggia, Tears of Change. And thank you very much for being here, Debbie. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you all next time. Make sure to pick up the book. Talk to you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.